Greetings, one and all. Chris Courtney here, new Pragmatic. It's time for another edition of that thing we call the feedback loop. Although we're going to wait for Couchbot to fire. Very, very busy morning this morning. Got into a long-winded discussion with Tejal and found myself a little bit behind with the rest of you, but it's a busy morning. Rebecca, Luigi, Katie, and Eve are all in today. And as I mentioned before, I've already been kind of helping Tejal with a little hand-to-hand combat on her project that is under wraps, big secret thing that she's working on. But I'm excited because today we've got 3 projects that are Figma projects, and we've got one that's a Webflow project, and then Tejal's working on like a definite proprietary project. So moving in a lot of different directions, and it only underscores the fact that it seems like everybody in the program has started to lock in with the natural period of time where we go, oh, it's time to go back to school. September 1st, it's time to go back to school. Now it's September 2nd, of course, but the whole idea, the mental switch that goes on in our heads right about this time says, all right, summer's over, time to get back to work. And that's happened this week. I was noting in the daily stand-up how everybody crammed their meetings into the first of the week. Where all summer long, all the meetings were at the back of the week. It's like suddenly everybody switched at the same time. And it's funny how society works that way. None of you live near one another. You're all scattered across the planet, really. And to see you all switch in like September 1st, let's go. It's comical. It's comical how we are all wired so similarly, even though you're working on different areas of your projects. So, Couchbot's fired, so I'm going to go ahead and get this underway because we've got a lot of ground to cover. Chris Courtney here, new Pragmatic. It's time for the feedback loop. So good to have you back. We've got Rebecca, Luigi, Katie, and Eve all in here. And I was just mentioning in the pre-show how it's amazing to see everybody switch on at the same time. Work has been through the roof this week, and I think it's because it's the 1st of September. It's early in the traditional school year. Actually, this is when people go, oh, it's time to go back to school. And that's exactly what everybody here is doing. They're like buckling down, saying, oh, I gotta get my study in. And that's great. Love it. That's what I'm here for. But it's kind of interesting to see us all lock in at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and let's get this underway. We're going to start right here with Rebecca. Rebecca's got a number of questions, and we will take them in sequential order. Need some help with this screen, the shopping cart. After the quote is approved, the buyer adds their quote to the cart to check out, and that is this is that screen. I'm struggling with the alignment here and where to add something to the saved product list. In the event they decide they don't want it later and they want to save it, they don't want it and they want to save it for later. All right, so again, I have not looked at many of these pages, so I'm going to zoom on in here and see what we can find. And again, let's go back to the comment to make sure that I'm looking. Okay. So this is the screen. Save, add to save products. Okay. Again, after the quote is approved, the buyer adds the quote to the cart for checkout. I noticed that you're doing a lot, and I'm guessing that a lot of this is based on like the old, the old version was a whole lot of boxes. I don't necessarily think you need this box over here. what I would encourage you to do is to look at, okay, how can I align this text, and then how can I align the proceed to checkout to the outside? You know, is it down here? Does it have to be up here? You know, but I would try to get these things in alignment. And I think you can even bring it in even further over to align it with the absolute edge of this. So I think that is how I would handle that. So this, you know, you've got some interesting spacing going on, and again, it's so much larger than it used to be. I'm not sure I follow the increase in size to like 18 here. This is like text that's part of smaller items, and typically, you know, that would be around the 12 to 14 range. You know, I understand the 18s up here, but I don't necessarily think that you know, this is actually 20. Yeah, this is 20, and that is 20. Okay, so you got 20 up there. I think that's as far as I would go with that. Down here, I really think that it's time to bring it down in size. So I would likely be coming in and going with 14. Sold by Supermelon. I'm not sure about the spacing here. And again, you know, I would be trying to, so this is a plastic door. This is the details. This is sold by Supermelon. So I mean, you've got an extra space in here. This might be where, instead of worrying about that, I would just use, you know, like 10, something to allow yourself to kind of control like even spacing. If you wanted to then come down and do an additional space here, I think that's fine. You know, how large does this box need to be? And you know, 1245 is the price, right? So it seems like, and there's also this, you know, this concept of in stock. So I'm not sure if this is, you know, I'm not sure what the in stock, if in stock is still in play or not. You know, this is where I probably would look at bringing this up in size to, you know, give the price some shine, if you will, and then come back with quantity. You know, and I'm not sure how big quantity should be, because I know that this site that you're working on, they do like large scale delivery, like large scale delivery of goods. So I think something like this, it's probably getting closer to the mark, and you know, it's a little different than what they had below. You know, your subtotal is over here, but your subtotal is this is like for the total order. You don't currently have a subtotal for like this particular item, and I do think that you're going to need that listed somewhere. You know, for, yeah, maybe it's, I'll just take the number that they've got displayed below, because I think you're kind of working off that data. And in this realm, like, so that's, you know, do you need, does this image have to be the full size? You know, like, I'm kind of in this area where I want to either make it the full size, or I want to make it a little smaller, because I really want more space over here. And then really, you know, I think if there's any sort of additional work needed, you know, I think it's just a further discussion. But what I've tried to do here is I've tried to give this some order that it was really kind of lacking last time. The price was kind of cobbled in here. I still am curious about the in stock and where that might go, but I do think that, you know, typically speaking, what I've seen is that these things tend to be poorly designed overall. Any company that I've seen do them, so that, you know, it's not a situation where I would necessarily look to an Amazon or Alibaba for like great design innovation here. And actually, you know, the way that we've done it now, where we've kind of put this over off on its own, if you wanted to center it, you could, you know, that's fine. But I do think that if you're going to have this on one line, just align it to the left, and then let that extra space kind of lead you, right? And is this here? Is this here? I think it's probably here because it looks like, you know, there's going to be potentially a lot of items as you go down, so you want to have that up in the corner. Okay. Let's take a look at some more comments here. 7. Cart quantity will not be editable if it's coming from the quote page. There will be an editable, but it will be there editable in a scenario where the buyer is buying local goods. So I think that, you know, the difference here, so the quantity, if this quantity is not editable, which is different than it being editable be different. So the quantity would be blank if somebody hasn't ordered. If somebody hasn't entered it, the quantity would be blank, like you have it here. If the quantity is provided but not editable, that's just again different than editable. Quantity, you know, 1,000. You know, and I think that, you know, this is where, you know, you might put it in a bold. You could consider making it larger. I'm not sure how much larger you want to make it. This is also where you might have a slightly different design that allows for this to move down. And the reason I'm saying have a different design that allows for this to move down is you might want some microcopy here that says quantity or not editable, not an editable action on requested quotes, because the number of items being ordered may directly impact the cost of that, and that's where I would probably put like a bit of microcopy in there. So again, if it is in fact editable, which is different than editable, it's like this. If it's not editable, it's like this. Okay, and that's going to be a slightly different shape, but your developers should be able to pull that off, because it's going to have a different flag on it, like, oh, is this an item that is coming back from a request? If so, display this way. If not, display another way. And that's pretty straightforward for a developer. 6, I need to design a factory review section in the search for questions section. Super struggling with it. Original screen below. Factory view and search. Well, it doesn't look like you have any reviews at all in this. Okay, so the first thing I would do is I would consider, like right now you're kind of locking in on this center view, and I would drop this down and go wide with it, just to kind of, and if you want to keep this centered here, that's whatever. It's not a big deal to me. But what I would be trying to push for would be to like align this content together and push for product questions, product details, product search. I would be trying to push this information up here, and then factory reviews. I think that is its own section. That could be one column across, or not one column, but it could be all the way across, and then you could actually come back with, I'm just going to use this as reviews, but you could have review as it goes down. This could obviously get longer, but then you could have like most popular review, and this would be the one that's got the most thumbs up or thumbs down, whatever. And then you could also have most critical, and this could be hanging out over here. But the idea I'm trying to help you with is coming up with some way of managing this that allows you to begin moving the shapes around. Again, I would probably have I'd probably have a 2-column design that allowed for left, right, and then right, left. Like skinny column on one side, wide column on the other. But I could also be completely talked into just flipping this around, having the smaller lengthy column to the right, and then having the more lengthy column that's always going to scroll to the shorter column to the left, longer column to the right, so these scroll as you go through the sections. But again, there's a lot of discussion there, and there's not a whole lot that's here right now. So I would look at putting these next to one another. Now, obviously, as you ask questions, this is going to present some sort of display. I don't know what that display would be, but if it's a situation where I could definitely see reviews working this way. If this is a situation where it's wanting oh, we're just going to add the the we're going to add the community answers directly below, then I might go back to having this stack 1, 2. Let's go on to the next one. The only difference between this product screen and is the tier of pricing. I can do the text, but I'm not sure where a good place to put it would be. Okay, so tiered pricing. So buy 10 for $580 each, save 3%. Buy 100 for $490 each, save 18%. This is like you're ordering, 100 electric bikes. Only difference is, and the only difference in this product screen. Yeah, the question is down here. So I'm a little confused here. Like, it looks like they have a design for it. Oh, you're wondering, like, where does it go? It's interesting. Because when you have the quantity request over here to the side, well, I think it's actually, I think it goes right in here because, this bit is obviously, going to change. Like, I don't think it has anything to do with this. You're just you're just displaying the price of what they could be ordering. There's a scale here, and maybe that scale should be reflected here, and then you have your 2 boxes here, but the quantity they request is separate from that. This is just a display. I'm just curious if that's how. Yeah, this just looks like a display. So you figure out what your display is, and then you come back over and you enter the quantity. And yeah, you've really improved that. That whole damn thing is a mess below. Jesus, can't even read it. All right, let's move on to last one. There's a product page where there are product options. Should I keep this the same or change the color of the icon? Keep it the same or change the color of the icon. All right, so where is the icon? I don't see. I mean, obviously this is a flag. Let's go back to quote. I'm trying to better understand. Okay, so when the option changes, I think what you're change the color of the icon. Are you saying change the color of the item instead of icon? Like if they say, I want this to be in red, should this be displayed in red? The answer there would be yeah. Or are we saying something else? I'm not quite sure I'm fully understanding the question. Last one. This is a product page where there are product options. Should I keep this the same or change the color of the icon? The question is, where is the icon? And I'm not seeing it right away. Now, I could see giving this, like when an option has been selected, notifying, like setting up some sort of signifier where the options have been selected, like a check mark or something. So I'm not sure if that's what you're looking for, but we should, feel free to throw this one back at me because I'm not completely certain that I'm seeing the icon that you're referring to, because obviously it's got the China flag, but I wouldn't think that would change colors. So it's got to be, you've got to be referring to something that I'm not grasping. So sorry about that. Moving on, we've got Katie here, and Katie is working through her Fresh Market project. She's been working on her landing page, and she's really made a lot of progress. So right now, Katie has created a menu like overview that allows you to basically select the type of food you're interested in before you go into the individual dishes. The one thing I would say here, Katie, is that so many of these are too. I think this is being really ambitious on what you can see inside of an image. So like chicken, like I can't begin to tell that's a chicken. Beef, I can kind of see it. Salad, it looks kind of like popular so I think this is where we can fall in love with the design, but not really understand how the images are displayed. A way you might get some of this back is to simply come in and say, all right, well, in the same space as I do too tall, I could do too wide. And I could do this at the same exact size, but these shapes would in fact allow me to display the images in such a way that they would show up. I mean, they would be viewable. So let's take this chicken one, for instance. If I took the I didn't really mean to do that, but if I copy it, and hello, chicken. Man, why is that? There we go. I just had to talk it into leaving. All right, so if I change this in size, I have a lot better chance of seeing that that is in fact chicken than I do over here. Okay? Now, that's not to say that everything has to line up either. I mean, if you decided you want it popular to still be wide, that's fine. You could make it wide, and you could have just one less hanging out down here below. Maybe you want popular to be just wide like that. That's okay too. And that's allowed. Maybe you want one of the ones in between to be that way. That's fine as well. The real trick is just knowing, this is probably an area where you're gonna have control over the images that are showing up. Those aren't gonna auto-populate. You're gonna say, oh, this is gonna link to the sides page, and you're gonna pick the image that goes there. So I just want to make sure that we're picking images that we can actually see what's happening. And when you do that, I think you'll be in a much better spot. But right now, this is just a little too squished. And I realized, when we talked yesterday, I laid out a pancake design, and that's probably where you got stuck. Don't take and this is a problem that we get into a lot when you're working with another designer, and they're like, if somebody else did the wireframes and they said, okay, here's how it's going to work. Trying to shoehorn things into those wireframes exactly as they've been handed to you is often a bad idea. Having a conversation, showing the option, like if somebody handed you this, I could see you doing this, and then go. But the next step is going back to them and saying, yeah, I don't think the images are, the sizes here are working. What if we did something like this? And typically that conversation is going to go very well for you, because people don't want the designs that they've been working on to come out terribly. That's just not how we normally do that. So that said, I would definitely adjust this wireframe to reflect that reality that these images aren't working. The idea is still fine, and the spacing still works. It's just like you need some better shapes. From there, you're clearly working through this, which I think is fine. Let's see, what other questions did you have? Sorry, I need to get back over here to Katie. Do you know why photos don't show up in prototype mode? Let's take a look at that, because that would be concerning. So I'm looking at prototype mode. Not sure which one of these is linked. So I'm not having trouble with any images showing up in prototype mode at the moment, Katie. So maybe this is something that you've already fixed, or it's always possible that there is a hiccup in the system. Figma's loading these images in from afar and bringing them back when it's in prototype. So that's something to look out for. But I don't currently see an issue based on what you've got here. Now, if there is an image somewhere else that's not showing up, I definitely would like to take a look at that. But as it stands right now, it looks like everything's showing up. Typically speaking, though, when something doesn't show up, it's when it is not part of the frame. So if this image, for whatever reason, like you've got this rectangle. Oh no. There you go. Well, no. Where is? Oh, it's in this. Isn't that frame? That's not that frame. Updated card. Star. Wow, I don't know. I don't necessarily know where you've. I don't know where the magic of this image is coming from. That's interesting. Now I want to go look at your components, because okay. Interesting. Well, right now they're all showing up. Typically speaking, when something doesn't show up, it's we'll take this up here. We'll look at this. It's when it's not part of the page. So like if for some weird reason, and I'm trying to come up. Okay, so here's menu. This rectangle here. Yeah, okay, so here's salad, right? If salad was up here, like, it wouldn't show up as part of this page. And now when you go into wireframing, salad's not there, even though it's on the page. You actually have to have that in the page for it to show up. And I'm going to move that back down so it's underneath salad, and it's underneath the background. And yeah, so that's the real trick there. So I hope that was helpful. But I would retry this menu page based on the fact that you're in complete control here. But I would love to be able to see the images that you're using, rather than it's just like strips of color right now. Okay. All right. So let's move in Luigi. Lining them up, knocking them down. We've got Luigi in here, and Luigi's been working on the cart page. Now, in fairness to Luigi's also been working on this AI for Good COVID project with a team literally all over the world. Luigi was talking to me about designers he's working with in London and in India on this project. It's a great project from, particularly from a remote team standpoint. Um, the most remote project I ever worked on was something where my entire dev team was in India, and we were building a mobile app, and I was the lead designer on it, and then I had like 12 developers, and there was always this gap of 12 and a half hours between us. Um, anyway, long story short, that project went okay. Went okay. Not great, but okay. Um, you've got your cart view. We've gone through this delivery path before, and you drill down. I love the fact that you've now added that overview for the details as you're checking out. So these, as you add more details, you get further in, you're checking out, and then as you get closer to the bottom, now your order is complete. You've got place order on both sides. You've got the confirmation screen. This all makes a ton of sense. I do want to zoom in here. Need help? Contact us about your order. Yeah, I think this makes sense. The other thing that you might want to consider doing, and this is all about language, is and let's think about this in a finished product form. When somebody closes this page, like they're like, oh yeah, order the thing. There are two methods typically that they can find this order again. For most places. One is they come back to Fresh Market and they look around for their account. Okay, it's like, oh, I gotta find my accounts because I gotta change something. Well, how do I change it after I close the page? Well, you can either go find your account, or as what I found most people have done in the past, and your survey, your research on this may vary, is they often go to their email because they get a confirmation email. And they're like, oh, click. So rather than trying to sort through and update the order, if they need to cancel it, if they need to move the time, if they need to change the delivery location, all that, that's something that's going to happen. There's going to be somebody who has trouble thinking through, your order has been placed. The estimated delivery time is 12:30 p.m. A confirmation of this has been emailed to you. It's just some language in here. There's no real action necessary because the idea here isn't that they have to that everybody's going to change things suddenly, but that, hey, I'm sending you this note. You can feel free to close this window. I'm sending you a note, and you'll have it in your email. That's like the piece de resistance on confirmation, is making sure that not only did you tell them thanks for your order, but you also sent them a receipt. Okay, so I would get that little bit of language in here, and then I would call this confirmation page done. Further, as you are working through. You're working through pickup now. So pickup, it's the checkout process. Instead of going delivery, Luigi's gone pickup, and he entered an address. So that's the same basic flow as over here, but the address now for pickup is simply showing him nearby locations rather than attempting to identify his location. And that's the real trick. And I think past this, once you confirm the store, the only thing that changes in the checkout is this would be pickup address or pickup location, and then it would show the store. My question here on this it's not nearly as it's not necessary for me to see my location shown up here on the order details, but I could totally see it being helpful to see the store location included on a small map in the if pickup was selected. Okay, so I would consider adding that bit of detail to this view once you have in fact selected this information. So I think you're heading in the right direction, but there's I would alter this order detail view to reflect that selection of a pickup location, because you're going somewhere that's probably not as familiar as your own home, right? Okay. Let's move on. Hey, Preppy Puppy, it's always there. Gosh, I knew that I had something. Oh, that's right. It's Webflow time, people. So first of all, kudos to Eve. She was really struggling with how to construct this section right down here, and it will come out to the big view. She was struggling to figure out how to construct this section last we spoke, and it's very clear that now it's functioning as desired. And the real trick that happened here was Eve had this set up as one section and then the two section, but she wanted this to stay scrolling to the side. But that's impossible if this is one section and this is a whole and down below this was a different section, like this got trapped. So she had to rethink the order of this to where this is one column, two column. So this, while the color stays the same here, this is actually two different columns, and one moves and the other one becomes sticky. So great job, Eve, working through that. I do think you probably need a bit more width here, or a bit more of a gap here. Right now it's kind of struggling, but still looks really nice. You had some questions related to, well, first of all, one of the questions that was most pertinent was this one, related to the slider, and you're not allowed to go and view it any larger than this. And I think that this is okay. If you are concerned, one thing I might suggest doing is going into the image itself and cropping off the sides so that this gets a little deeper, but it also gets proportionally larger. You want to make sure that you do that to both of them so that they still fit equally. But that is one way. That's one way that you can make this work a little better. It'd be like a 10 to 15% improvement in size, because the space that you pull off the sides is just going to get added to the height. Okay? So this thing's going to be like that big. The other thing that I wanted to bring up was these elements here, the sitemap and the order user flow. Right now, when you click on them, they are transparent because they're PNG. I really believe that you're going to want to go in and change that and add color to the background, and or you're going to want to edit these in such a manner that allows you to display a smaller section, and or you might just link to them, because they're not showing up in a manner that even when you're able to click through and see them, they don't really display a ton that you can tell from this view. And when you get into mobile, like, what's it going to do in mobile? And I'm curious, where are we at in mobile? Failure is growth. Okay, so we've definitely got some work to do here in mobile. Yeah, so I would just get rid of these altogether in mobile. But obviously, Eve's got a lot of work to do there still. less of an issue as you go up. Now, you also had a question about these artifacts and utilizing Webflow's CMS. I am not a huge fan of Webflow CMS for handling links because I believe that most of these links are like Google Docs, and I wouldn't necessarily want to like export everything out of a Google Doc and throw it into Webflow to make it like an individual page. So what I might suggest looking into is, keep Google Docs for Google Docs, and anything that is like a visual artifact that you're trying to link to, go over here and create a bucket in AWS. Amazon Web Services is the way that I host all the images on New Pragmatic. It costs me like 41 cents a month to host all the images, including the GIFs that you see that play through. AWS is the industry standard for like holding archived files. And the reason why I don't like using Webflow, particularly in your situation as a CMS, is this is really just meant to be a portfolio. This is not meant to be like this ongoing, growing blog that's going to get hundreds of thousands of views. It's just a portfolio. So I would steer clear of Webflow as my CMS for your usage. If you were posting like every day and you needed like a place to build, or if you were building this for a client, that's where the CMS comes into play. Okay? So I really do think that it has its place, but not for a portfolio. Where the CMS really works is when I'm building a blog or a site. I'm building a shopping site for a customer, and I want them to be able to add things to it to where I don't have to touch it. CMS, like that's when it works, not portfolio. For your purposes, I would look at AWS and go that route, because again, with AWS, as you go in, and I'll sign into my console really fast. Still got that weird little. So I go to S3. Going into my buckets. Go to Noop, wherever it is. New Prag. And here's all the different folders that I've created for like interaction design. Here's all the different assets that are in New Pragmatic for interaction design. Okay? And, if I go to bbc.jpg and I look at this is what I would paste in. I would just grab that link and paste it in to, wherever Webflow is wanting to point to for a image. I would just host it on AWS. And you can see this is the folder name, S3, AmazonAWS.com, and then the folder inside of New Prag is right here. So interaction design and the name of that file. All right. But AWS is what I would look at. I would not bother with Webflow's CMS for that purpose. But overall, otherwise, I think that, you've got some work to do here as you go down. And, that's not to be, that's not a huge shock. But again, when you get into this screen, this is where I would like drop a link in for a smaller size, and then let it go. I would not try to show these. I wouldn't try to show these even at a larger size between you and me. They just don't show up well enough. They're too tall. Unless you want it to go through and redraw them to be wide. Okay? And I don't necessarily think I don't think you're going to get enough upside out of them to make it beneficial. I think you can talk to the issue and let people click on the link to see the artifacts. All right. But yeah, that's where I'm going to leave it. I think that you're in a really good spot. So that's Eve, that's Luigi, that's Katie, and that's Rebecca. And that's going to do it for this edition of the Feedback Loop. Oddly enough, I got questions from Tedral waiting on me after we wrap this up. So I'm going to bid you adieu, and I will see all of you again tomorrow. Take care.